How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. It's been a lovely day. Yeah, going well.
Great, that is good. We've shared a couple of highlights, so Maria's
Nice.
had a good day. So I hope you have too.
Yeah, it's been fun. We've been doing a bit of history, doing about the Vikings. Look at them coming over. Always kind of fun week. It'd be a bit more practical than history in primary school. It was yeah, it was a lot of fun today.
Love it. That is great. Awesome. Fab. Well, we'll continue the joyous day and we'll
Absolutely.
crack on. But just welcome. Thank you both for being here, and I'll let you kind of introduce yourselves in a bit more detail in a moment. But I'm Jess Hannon. I'm programs manager for education support. And if you haven't heard of Education Support before, we're the only UK based charity to support the entire education workforce in terms of mental health and wellbeing. And we've been going for nearly 150 years now. So, and we've got lots of great stuff to support anyone working in education. So do, if you haven't already, have a little look on our website for lots of free resources and great help on there. So yeah, can I get you guys to introduce yourself? Maria, as you've been kind of on and settled a little bit a little bit longer, Nathan, can you just sort of say a bit about you and yeah, introduce yourself to our lovely audience?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm Maria McLeish. I'm a secondary English teacher and I'm working and living in Leeds at the moment. And I finished Teach First last year. And this year I'm finishing, hopefully, my Master's in Educational Leadership.
Great stuff. Welcome. Thank you. And Nathan?
Fab. Well, I'm a primary school teacher. I'm teaching in Leeds in a kind of inner city school. I still teach first, and I've just started the Masters in Educational Leadership, which is quite nice. It's really fun. It's really good. And I came to teaching through music. So I studied music. I studied piano and classical singing, which is my kind of background, which I really love.
Great. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That's fab. So you're joining us today to look at kind of wellbeing strategies for teachers in their early careers in teaching. So if you are joining us and it's your first year or your second or third, whatever year, you're very welcome. And hopefully we can give you some great wellbeing strategies to take away and embed into your career, so we can support you on a long and healthy career moving forward. So we just format is we're gonna have a bit of a chat to see, like, yeah, what top tips you can share with our audience. So just, I think let's just start us off and delve into kind of the joyful bit of teaching. And what are you both enjoying most about teaching? Nathan, we'll come to you
Yeah,
first.
sure. I think it's such a good job teaching. You get every single day you're working with, fantastic people who are in it, for all the right reasons, for making people's lives better every single day. And there's something really special about that as a teacher. So working into your workplace and genuinely having that feeling that everyone's working hard together and everyone's kind of pulling together. I think there's nothing quite like that. And so I just love being able to work in that kind of environment as a teacher, and just with the people around you, and you interact with the kids every single day, and there's tons of positives. There's some really difficult situations, but you can look back often, like at the end of a half term or in the holidays, and you look back and you see how much they've done, how much they've progressed, how much they've changed, and it's a lovely feeling. It really is.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. Maria, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think that's a really conclusive answer. Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, maybe the only thing I would add, I guess, is the passion of, I guess, teaching things that you're passionate about, as well as all the wonderful things pupils bring. I think teaching stories that I've loved for years to people who kind of are getting to read the stories for the first time, and every single year they say something about the stories that I think I know really well, but they say something that makes me think that is such a good point. I've not thought about that. So they're helping me to know the stories better, even though it's their first time reading it, and that is just such a fab thing to be part of.
Oh, that's so lovely, isn't it? That kind of light bulb moment that a lot of educators talk about, the seeing the light bulb moment in a kid when they get it. But actually, like, to have that the other way round, that real, yeah, continued learning for you
Yeah.
guys as well. That there's learning happening for the kids and for yourselves in that situation, which is awesome. I was with at an ECT conference the other week and asked a similar sort of question to the group, and the whole room sort of lit up with this energized chat about all the fabulous things that they love about their job, and it's, you know, that's lovely to hear, isn't it? So thank you for sharing that, and I'm sure people watching have got numerous similar stories to talk about, so thank you for sharing that. And I think it goes without saying, doesn't it, we know that teaching is a busy old career, isn't it? And you know, the year just, you know, it goes from term to term, but I think I'm be interested for you guys to sort of share your thoughts on the kind of how you manage the real pinch points, you know, things like parents' evenings or marking, and, you know, things like that. How do you kind of, yeah, how do you manage those pinch points? What are your top tips there? Oh, it might be how much I direct that question. Maria, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the things that has really helped me, I think like something that kind of happens more through the years naturally anyway, is like, I guess, engineered efficiency, where you find ways of doing things that maybe the first time would take you an hour, but then by the second time you've done a third term isn't taking you as long. So I think with parents evening, for example, for my first ever few, I would sit for hours and go down my register and make notes on little post-it notes for every single pupil, and then take the post-it notes and bring those and talk to parents and carers about them, and then use that to help me know what I wanted to say. But now I think, okay, big picture, what are the 3 or 4 things that this class really needs on the whole that they would all benefit from? Write them down, and then as each appointment is happening, I can think which advice of these 4 most fits this pupil, which did the pupil in front of me most need, and then rather than spending hours sifting through, actually you know the pupils really well, so you can think big picture and then allow that to help you, and that's just saved an hour there, and that's time that you get back.
That's brilliant. Real practical example. I love that engineered efficiency. That's really, really good concept. Thank you. Nathan.
Yeah, I'll go top of that. It's a great word, engineered efficiency. I think I'll use that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The more you do things, the more the motions go. The faster and quicker you get at it. And I think there's a you know, a light of hope for kind of teachers right at the beginning who are just, so lots of the job is taking a very long time, and they worry how they're going to progress through their career and how more things will fit in. And you're right, it kind of does. You get patterns, you get structures, your knowledge increases, and you're able to do things quicker. I think a really kind of practical example is when I started teaching, I had so many books to mark. And marking, I think, is something that gets all teachers. And I wasn't quite aware of quite how long I was spending on books. And so I got a little bit frustrated with myself. And I decided that I was just going to record myself marking books so I could literally see what on earth was going on and why I was spending hours and hours on these books. And I realised for a set of 30, I was taking about an hour to mark them, which was an awful long time. But I'd kind of realised I'd put them away in a box, and then I'd get them out of the box. And then I'd have to flick through and find where the student's work was, and then I'd have to mark it, and then I'd have different piles, and kind of through that process, I just ended up collecting them in on the open page, as lots of people do, kind of flicking through them in that kind of way, and being a bit more organised of how I set them all up, adding the kind of live marking stuff. And now marking is not one of my kind of highest things. So I think it's absolutely right. You start to see in the job where you're spending a really long time, where your own pinch points are, if that's like planning lessons or if that's marking. And I think all teachers build up this efficiency on how they organise themselves, how they sort themselves out, and it really helps. It really does help. And the more years you start doing it, the more times you've seen the same problem again and again. The better you become at being more efficient and getting it sorted quicker. And so I think it's always worth spending that little bit of time or leaving that little bit of time to work out how you can do something quicker or better, or improve upon it. And I think that's really helpful to do.
Yeah, that's another really very helpful practical approach to that. And I think there's something there as well about knowing when you've done enough. And I think, you know, there's a lot of sort of perfectionism, isn't there, and wanting to always do more and more, you know, which is admirable in one respect, but actually then you'd just keep going, wouldn't you? And it's interesting. I shared when with a group of ECTs I was working with about the concept of, if you're a perfectionist, and so I'm the same. This has come from sort of the coaching that I've had, is someone said you've got to understand when it's good enough, and I'm like, yeah, but my perfectionist driver is, I can't be good enough, it has to be perfect. And so I had to switch that phrase to say, right, this is good enough, this is good enough now, no more.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that seemed to really land, you know, that's that bit about going, I need to draw a line in the sand here. I could keep working, I could keep doing this, but actually you need to just stop. And we've got to recognize also there's only so much energy that we have, isn't there? We have to, you know, when those pinch points are coming up, what are we doing for ourselves to actually re-energize and make sure that we're ready to kind of tackle those sort of, you know, intenser periods of the teaching calendar as well.
Absolutely. I think in terms of perfectionism, we often spend so much time from ourselves resourcing the, you know, the displays or the slideshow or the resources for the kids. But actually that comes at the detriment to ourselves, and we're the ones teaching the classroom, we're the main resource for the students and where they get their input. And so I think the amount of perfection you put into the slides, into the work, you need to put into yourself to make sure that you're looked after and that you're able to present that lesson. Because you could have the perfect material, but if you're too tired on too little sleep, or if you're really grumpy because of something that's happened or you haven't taken the time yourself, perfection is irrelevant, because you need to make sure you're looked after to deliver that lesson. That's definitely something I learned, that I need my sleep. I need to make sure I'm ready for my lesson rather than being grumpy on a Monday morning.
Yeah. So you just alluded to something there in terms of how you might proactively manage your mental health and well-being as well, Nathan. So Maria, do you have anything that you can share in terms of how you protect your own mental health and well-being at those times?
Yeah, I think I'm thinking about what you were saying and the idea of perfection and then good, because there's quite a big difference between the amount of work involved to make something good enough, if we want to say that, and then the amount of work involved to make it perfect. And that's maybe 6-7 hours of work different, depending on what it is like a lot of hours different between those two things, isn't it? So it's like what you were saying and thinking, if this is enough, and it is, and I'm not striving for perfect, whatever that can mean, even in teaching anyway, that's hours that you're getting back, isn't it? And they're hours you can use for just doing something else, like decompressing or whatever it is that you enjoy. But yeah, there's a big difference between those two, I think. So that's a good point.
Absolutely. And whatever, you know, you can strive for perfection, but we know it doesn't exist, don't we? So you're actually wasting that time. So yeah. So what kind of things might you do for yourself, Maria, in terms of mental health and well-being?
For me, I always think, obviously everyone's different, but there's some of the hobbies that I really like. So I like painting and I like reading, but sometimes they can be obviously it depends on the day, but sometimes they're quite, if you're reading or you're drawing and things, you can feel quite still in your head sometimes, I think. And so we've been recently doing kind of more game nights or whatever, where we get out the board games, and it seems silly, but actually you do it and you've just taken yourself out of it for a second, and you just feel like fully rested in a way that sometimes hobbies that maybe aren't that escapist don't give you. But obviously different things work for different people, and it's a combination of hobbies and then escapist things as well. But yeah, we've been enjoying some board games recently.
Amazing. Have you got a favourite?
We've been enjoying Cluedo, actually,
Okay.
which is something I've gone quite a long time without ever playing. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It just takes your mind off things for a bit, doesn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the social connection as well, working, you know, playing those kind of games with other people and just being able to connect with others. We know that that's a really good driver of good mental health and well-being.
Yeah, that's right. And not connecting over, like, I guess you could be ranting about something that's upset you, and you're like, this is good, this is what I need to do. But actually sometimes maybe it's not the most productive, and you can be ranting, and you can find yourself getting more worked up. And even though you're with the people you love and you're expressing your feelings, you can actually feel like it can make you worse sometimes. I think that's a good way of still being with people and still socializing, but just being like, let's do something let's not talk about school. Let's not. And do something outside of that. Yeah.
That's really good. That's really good. Yeah. Nathan, is there anything else that you'd like to share that you
Yeah,
do for your
sure.
mental health?
I think in the school day, I always try to stop for lunch, because I just think it breaks up the day. It gives a much nicer sense of the afternoon, and it really helps me just reset from whatever's happened in the morning, make sure I'm on it for the afternoon. But I think it's really easy in the middle of a day when you're working so hard in lessons and you have so much input for your own head and your own headspace to then think about the 10 or hundreds other things on your jobs list to do. And I think sometimes for me, and I try and do it every day, is just stopping for lunch, at least 20 minutes to just sit down and eat without thinking about work, without thinking about the next jobs list. And knowing that I'll have time to do it later on has been really helpful to give that breathe point, and make sure I come into the afternoon really well and really happy and really cheerful. And it has a knock-on effect on the kids as well, that then helps them. And when you get that positive momentum, it starts rolling and it starts really, really helping. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. And
True.
helping other people, because if you're sitting and having some lunch and
Yeah,
talking to your colleagues, that helps them break their thoughts on school
it
as
does.
well. So
Absolutely.
yeah, really collegiate. That's brilliant. And I think, often we hear from educators that there's just no time in the day to have a kind of a break and a breather. And it's trying to find those micro moments where you can have a bit of a literal breather, actually. So a lot of people, when you say, oh, breathing techniques, and sort of roll their eyes, but actually the box breathing, for example, can be done if there's stuff going on in your classroom and it's getting a little bit stressful or whatever, or you run off your feet and you slump into the photocopier and you still need a wee, or whatever it might be. You can just take a moment to just focus on your breathing, and no one knows you're doing it. And it just recenters it, breaks that sort of stress cycle and takes you to that kind of, no, I'm safe, I'm okay. And that's a kind of an instant win. So people say, oh, I don't have time to stop and go for a walk or do lunch, but we have to breathe. It's kind of
We do.
inevitable.
We do.
Absolutely. And I think you started to touch a bit there on sort of boundaries. I think, Nathan, you talking about, I will stop and I'll have my lunch. So how do you kind of ensure that you kind of stick to that? How do you maintain those boundaries around those
Well, I think
activities?
we're always really strict with our boundaries in school. We're very strict on making sure lessons are planned in time, that if you share worksheets with colleagues, that they get them on time. And all these things we're really, really good at being really structured with. And I think it's just having, I guess, sometimes the courage to defend your own time in the same way,
Yeah.
to just make sure that if you've got a space of time that you need for your head, for your breathing, just to calm down, just to take some space, that is just as important as prepping and planning for your next lesson, and making sure that that's ready. And so being, I think, courageous in defending your own time and ring fencing that is really helpful. And maybe, that needs to go in your calendar. Maybe the time needs to be spent with a friend, and so therefore you do it and you don't let them down as you see somebody else. But actually being accountable for that time, that's there for you and that's there to look after you, is really important, just as important as getting the work done and keeping up with all the tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Maria, would you like to add anything there?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of thinking about it, isn't it? The being courageous with your time. I really like that phrase. I think it can be really hard because I guess people who are involved in teaching are really, really happy to give up their time to help others. Like, really happy. And if someone comes and asks us for something, can you do that? It is just going to be hard for us to say no, because we're already here, because that feeling of wanting to help others is just so strong. So I think maybe it could be something that's potentially more so for teaching than in others. But yeah, you can feel like you're having to be brave and say no, and especially with, like, if you have, I have a club in my classroom only on Tuesdays, and pupils can try and come on Thursday and be like, oh, can we just? And it's just so hard to be like, no, not today. I've got to prepare for year 11, or I've got to go speak to me. And they're like, okay. But then afterwards, I feel like, oh, that was so mean. That was so hard. But it isn't. They'll just go somewhere else. They're
They
absolutely
will.
fine. They'll go and doodle in someone else's room. It's
Yes, they
fine.
will.
But it's, yeah, keeping your time and trying really hard to just keep that half an hour, because it's such a short amount of time for you. It's hard. Yeah. So I like that idea of being courageous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good saying. Courageous at defending your time. That's it's a really good quote. And the accountability piece is massive, isn't it? You know, that I think that's really cool. That's really good. Okay, so resting then. You've had, you know, we've talked about today's you've had good days, but you know, often you can have difficult weeks. So how do you rest and recharge?
I think that's a really good question, isn't it? Because I think the we always have kind of mental well-being. It's always really important, but the times when maybe we need it the most is when we've had a really bad week. Those are the times when we'll need to do all of those things. We'll need to protect our time. We'll need to try our breathing, try to spend time with family and friends. And so those can be the weeks where it's most important to protect well-being, can't it? The weeks where it's gone wrong, whatever that means. So I always think trying to, I guess Nathan's already said it, but holding on to positives and trying to come away every week with something good that happened, because so many things happen in a week, and one terrible year 8 lesson isn't the only thing that's happened that week. Like it might feel like it was because it was last lesson on a Friday, but so many good things have happened that week, and those are the things to hold on to, because those are the things that are the reason you're going back on Monday, you know. So I think always like recouping on Friday is like a thing that I like to do. I used to actually write it down and write down something good every Friday, or just whenever something came to me. But now I'm trying to make a conscious decision to like just say it. So I'll come home and say it to family, this happened, this is like my takeaway from this week, and not ignore the negatives, but yeah, maybe ignore them, maybe kind of put them in their place, and that'll be dealt with on Monday. But actually, what I need to remember today is when that pupil got the idea that they've been struggling with for 3 days, and they got it and they wrote a wonderful sentence, and that's it, you know.
I love that. That is great. And speaking those positives out, that changing the
Yeah.
narrative, that you don't come home
Yeah.
with all of the doom and gloom, but it's the stuff that lights you fire and keeps you smiling. I love that. Thank you. Nathan, anything from you?
Yeah, I think narratives are really important, and we know it in the classroom. We know that kind of presenting in a positive way and focusing on the positives and not the negatives, it's all stuff we do. And I think doing that for ourselves, being positive about what's happened or what's a week, is really important. So I agree with that. I think it's really nice. And I think there's a little bit about finding the time where you do have a bit more space, and trying to think about what's going to come up next, what's coming ahead, where I'm going to need a bit of extra support. Is there a bit of planning that can be flexible, that can be kind of moved into different sections? Can I get ahead in this task, or can I organise something in this way now that might take me a few hours, but actually then will save me 20 minutes every day? And are there kind of ways to get ahead? Because obviously when you get parents' evening, when you get your data weeks that you've got to submit those, when you get kind of deep marking, or somebody wants to come in and look at something in your classroom, you end up getting days and even weeks where you're really, really stretched, and you have long days and you have less sleep than you'd like. And if you're then trying to cram everything else into that as well, it can be really, really tough. So making sure those kind of pinch points are thought about, are prepared about, and doing whatever you can to make sure that you're ready for them. And that you're ready to just help yourself in the quieter times, that you can spot that, and you can make sure that you're ready for the future.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Some really good top tips and bits of advice there. Thank you. And I think just to end then on that, if ECTs or anyone in their sort of early stages of teaching, remember just one thing or one tip to help them look after their well-being this academic year and moving forward, like what would you hope that would be? Nathan? Do you want to,
I
have you got a
think,
thought?
yeah, it's a tricky question. It's so much. It's so
Sorry, end on an easy one, Jess.
of course. I think for me that the big thing is about perspective. It's about, we've all come into teaching for love of it, for love of what we can influence and support people. And at its core, through all the bad stuff, through all the pressure, through all the difficulty, we have a massive impact on kids' lives. We have a massive impact on communities. And no matter how you feel it going sometimes, you are that role model for that student, and you are changing lives in what you do just by turning up, just by being there, just by following that passion. And I think there's a little bit about perspective about times will change. There's always a holiday on the horizon. There's always something coming, a bit of time, a bit of a break. And no matter what you're doing, you're turning up and you're being the teacher who you wanted to be and who you want to be, and who your students need, I think. I think there's that perspective that actually, even if times are really hard, even if you're really struggling and you're struggling even to turn up, by being there, some kids really need that, and you're really turning lives around and supporting communities, and you're doing a fantastic job. So that perspective will be for me, especially for kind of early careers. You'll get there. We'll get through it.
Amazing. Thank you, Nathan. That's lovely. Maria.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful thing to take away. Yeah, the importance of perspective, I think. Yeah, remember why you're doing it, remember how impactful it's been, and it's like you've said, yeah, changing lives, and it might not feel like it on a random Thursday, and it might not for a few days after that, but you have moments that you'll have, and you'll cling on to them for weeks and weeks. Like, I'm really proud of that conversation with that pupil. They did so well, and I'm really happy for them. And pupils will say things to you about how much you're helping them, and honestly, that'll give you just weeks and months worth, sometimes years worth of like, oh, that's going to stay with me. And if you're not at that point, if you think I can't think of anything, like, maybe it happens tomorrow, maybe someone says something to you tomorrow that you remember for months and months. And I think, yeah, perspective is really important. I think, yeah, I've tried to say something else. I've not just said the same thing as but maybe setting rules. Like, I think, as well as the emotional well-being part of kind of having your perspective, I tried to have kind of rules with myself. And like, as a rule for my first year, it was never ever ever working on Saturdays, ever ever. And I did manage to stick to that. Sometimes it would mean working late on Fridays, sometimes it would mean doing something on Sunday morning, but never ever working on Saturdays. And obviously everyone's lives are different, and timetables works different for different people, but something like that you always hold true, and you do everything you can in your week to, no, that's my time, and that time needs to be protected. A rule, I think, as well as perspectives, maybe setting some rules that work for you, I think.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. And there's a real sense of encouragement there. I think it's about, I think there's encouragement comes out strongly there. And I think it's never too late, is it, to start a habit? And habits take a while. And I think looking after yourself and putting yourself first and creating that habit is difficult, because often we can feel really self-indulgent, but in teaching, it's a necessity, because you need to show up for that classroom of kids, and you need to be your best self in school and out of school, because you're a human being as well as a teacher, and you have lives, and we want you to flourish in both your schooling and your personal lives. So mine would be about, start that habit now and put those boundaries in place. We've talked about boundaries, we've talked about, rest and all of that. So I encourage you to take that away. But guys, that's gone so quick. It's been amazing. We could go on for another half an hour, I'm sure, and talk more. But thank you so much for your input. And for everybody, watching, just thank you for all that you do in your school. You are amazing people, yourself, Nathan and Maria as well. Thank you. Go visit our website. We've got loads of stuff available for you. We have an emotional support helpline that's available 24/7 as well for anyone that just needs somebody to talk to. We've got trained counsellors there, so go on our website to find the number for that. And if you want to stay in touch, if you want education support delivered to your doorstep or email, then you can go on and register for our newsletter as well. You just get great stuff delivered to you, so you don't have to keep going and finding things. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been amazing talking with you. All the best for the rest of the academic year. And
thank
and we've got
you.
the education support site just come up there. Thank you to my lovely colleague. And take care of yourselves. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Don't think there's been any comments or questions that I can see. So the helpline number's there as well. So that's just come as well. So thank you for that. But wish you a good evening, and go and do something lovely and enjoy your Cluedo game.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, folks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye.